The best way to start an island morning.
You get me going.
Ryan and Lisa on CFAX 1070.
Well, the province is working with local police forces to try to crack down on repeat offenders, the ones that cause a great majority of the property crimes and small theft and that kind of problem in a lot of cities all across all across BC, and Victoria is one of the places about to get this chronic property offending intervention initiative. So we're going to talk about that with Jamie McRae, Victoria Police Deputy Chief. He's joining us on the phone. Sir, hello, how are you?
Good morning, Ryan. Great. How are you this morning?
Oh, great to get you here. And we're going to talk all about this in a second and unpack how this is actually going to look for Victoria. But it is one thing I want to bring up before we get into the main topic here, and that's the fact that all across Canada, we're watching a couple of stories of police officers shot. We've had gunfire in Montreal, where we have seen a police officer killed in a shooting. And then there's another one in Saskatchewan just a little bit before this. So just as a police officer, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about how you and your coworkers are feeling.
Yeah, you know, it's days like these and moments like these where we have a reminding the safety risks that exist with being a police officer in Canada. It's often something we really, maybe think about more with our partners in the United States. But right now, and over the years we've seen it, we're only a few years out of a very significant police shooting here in Victoria, of course, at the Bank of Montreal. And so whenever these things happen, we know how it feels for those officers, for their colleagues, for their department, for their community at large. And so it is one of the times where it gives us an opportunity to reflect, to check in, make sure everybody's doing well, but also make sure that we're still providing the service to our communities that we have been hired to do and that we've committed our lives to doing. And as hard as it is at times, we know that the community supports us and bad things are going to happen, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure our communities are safe and do what we can to help each other to get through these tough moments.
And we've been hearing that police services here in BC are being warned that there's a possible anti-police manifesto encouraging violence after this particular case in Montreal. In Victoria, are you guys doing anything to, heed that warning?
So it is something we did receive as well. I won't go into the specifics of what we are doing in order to help mitigate. However, it is something we are acutely aware of and we have alerted all of our staff to, and making sure we're doing everything we can so that each time any of our officers are attending a call or out in community, that they're being vigilant, they're being safe, and still providing that high level of service our communities have come to expect.
Well, stay safe out there, and we're thinking of police officers after what's been going on in the news over the last, 3 Canadian police officers killed on the job in less than 2 weeks now, with all these different stories out there. But we'll leave that aside for the moment because this is another thing we want to unpack here, and that is this new chronic property offending intervention initiative. The BC government's going to put $16 million over the next 2 years into this. And what they say is trying to rein in, I guess, they've pegged the number at 420 people. There's 420 people, repeat offenders, responsible for the vast majority of some of these local issues. Is that number correct?
Well, I think what we know, and getting into the specific exact numbers is always a little bit hard. But what we know is a small percentage of the people committing these repeat property offenses, similar to when we implemented the repeat violent offender program. It's only a small percentage of people that are actually committing multiple offenses. When the pilot was done for this, which was done in Nanaimo, Kelowna, and Nelson, they saw a demonstrable impact, particularly in Kelowna and Nelson, where they were able to really narrow it down to, I say a handful, but a number of people in each of those communities where they were really actually committing so many of the property files as well as other nuisance-type files, and ultimately by giving those people A, consequences for actions, and B, better supports when they were done, either their sentence or whatever their probation, community corrections, whatever that was, they were finding that those people then were breaking that cycle and not continuing to come back into the cycle again as soon as they got out of either jail or as soon as they returned to town, that kind of a thing. So here in Victoria, specific to us, we've had a look at our data and we've looked at it carefully based on the criteria for the program. And we have roughly at first blush, and keep in mind this is very new, so we're only kind of at the very early stages, but we have roughly 20 people that we think fit the criteria for this program that are committing a disproportionate number of these kinds of offenses. And by helping support them, by holding them accountable, but also giving them the better supports on the back end, we think that'll make a difference. And a big reason why we think it'll make a difference is because of the success we've seen from the Repeat Violent Offender Program, where we have seen improvements and we have seen reduced revisitism. It doesn't eliminate it, but it has been reducing it, which is, I think, a positive for our community.
Okay, we'll talk more what's changing then. So you've mentioned, for Victoria, maybe it's 20 people. In the province, they've talked about maybe 420 people, these repeat offenders that need something extra. So what is the extra thing? You talked about maybe some different supports as well as different consequences. Talk about how things change from here and when it happens.
For sure. Yeah, so what the program is where police are partnering with Crown Council, Corrections, and Probation. So if you have somebody who has been identified as being part of the program, this is a chronic property offender, they can be raised by police, it could be raised by Corrections, it could be raised by Crown as somebody, hey, we keep seeing this person as a revolving door, they keep coming up over and over again. That name goes forward, it gets put into the program so that if an offense is committed by that person, then instead of having it, a different Crown each time they've committed an offense, it's the same Crown Counsel who's assigned to that actual file. So they have some knowledge of the person, they have better history, understanding of their background, better history and understanding of if different offenses they may have committed. From there, they may get sentenced, say, to a jail sentence, or they may get probation, something along those lines. But having that connection with both Corrections and Probation allows those organizations to help make sure what is it that person needs to make them successful when they're either released from custody and given conditions, or B, they're out in community at any point. What is it that they need to have them succeed in society and stop this cycle where they're continually, committing thefts, nuisance, bylaw, whatever those files may be? How do we fit that in? And that is ultimately by having everybody work together and having a bit more focus and attention on those individuals by a group rather than what I would call, I don't want to say any police officer arriving, but if a police officer arrives and arrests somebody, there's already bail conditions that are already prepared for these individuals. So with all of their history and everything in there, as I say, then Crown Counsel already knows, the Probation and Corrections are already involved. So it provides a better wraparound service for the individual who is continually coming into contact with police and interrupting creating a lot of problems in community.
So the money that's going into this that the province announced, is it going into funding those programs, or is it funding, individuals to help make the connections? I'm just trying to figure out exactly how, what are we expanding here?
So the primary areas of expansion are surrounding Crown Counsel, so allowing funding for Crown Counsel to be able to hire dedicated Crown, so additional Crown, because they don't have the ability to just add this on the side of their desk. Similar for Corrections or in Community Corrections, so there's dedicated people that are being hired with that funding. That's the primary source of it. There's a little bit of funding that is also supported for police on the enforcement side of things, but that part has already been really, well highlighted through both SITE and C-STEP funding, which is another program the province has where we do, you may have heard, where we say C-STEP, for example, where we have increased foot patrols in the downtown core that are funded by the province to help reduce public disorder and create safer places.
We've got one question here on the text that I think is good to ask too. The texter says, with the province announcing $16 million over 2 years for 12 new intervention hubs for repeat shoplifters, property offenders, and Victoria's getting one of these, as we've been talking about. The question is, why can't police just arrest and charge these chronic offenders under current existing laws? So yeah, why do we need something like this? If you got somebody who does, repeatedly offend, how come, why doesn't our existing system deal with this?
So the existing system absolutely does, and police, of course, have the ability to arrest, and Crown Counsel has the ability to lay charges and prosecute. But this is just essentially creating a more efficient system for these high circumstance individuals to try and help them break that cycle. So rather than having a different Crown Counsel, rather than having a different probation officer, rather than having a different circumstance, it is going to be the same person for each of these individuals, and have that consistency to help hold them accountable better, but also to make sure they are given every opportunity to succeed so they don't have to be back into the system again. That is something that our current system doesn't really have the ability to support, whereas this new system and the ability to have these people in the program allows that to happen.
Jamie McRae is Victoria Police Deputy Chief, talking about how we'll see this money announced by the province filter down to the Victoria level, and I'm assuming it'll be a similar case all across these other spots in BC, which will now get the support to try to deal with repeat offenders. Thank you so much for talking us through the story today.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Anytime.